Hey folks, it's Chad here. I have a little bit of an update going on with the Watson's Airstream right here behind us. You may be wondering where we are. It is not a Airstream rally. We're actually in service here at Airstream at Greensboro. So I want to do a little bit of a life update with our camper, what's going on with it. So let's get started now. Now, a few months ago, Laura and I went to an Airstream rally where I did a seminar, which is really fun. I get to do these quite often, especially here with the Carolinas Airstream Club here in North Carolina, which is our local Airstream Club. And the seminar was funny enough about front end separation, just a little bit of a talk about that. And to get a little bit closer to our camper, what we discovered after we did the seminar was we actually have a little bit of front end separation. So we're coming along right here. We're gonna have, you'll see another crease right in that area, right there. You can see it really good on the camera. So this is a good indication that we probably have a little bit of front end separation happening with our camper. There you can see a nice up close of those rivets that have popped out. And that's generally just from pressure. And then there's that crease right there. Now, as I mentioned, we did a seminar at the Carolina rally, and it was a seminar about front end separation. Now, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a technician. I'm truly a Airstream salesperson, also an Airstream owner, and a true fanboy of Airstream, just general. Like I love the brand, I love the history, the heritage, the legacy of Airstream. Now, what I had not done in all of that research was I never actually went and looked at our Airstream to see if we had an issue with it. I don't know why, I just never thought about it, but you know, I did the research, I did, you know, started kind of putting the seminar together, but never thought, hey, I should go look at our camper. As far as I knew, it was good. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. Well, the fun thing is, we decided to all go out and take a photo, as you regularly do when you're at an Airstream rally. If you've never been a part of an Airstream rally, I highly recommend going to one in your local area or joining the Airstream Club. I will tell you that Laura and I are planning to be at Luma this year, so 2024. So if you want to go to that, you can hang out with us a little bit, maybe share a drink, and hopefully by then we'll have our camper fixed. So we get done with the seminar, and this is kind of the funny part. Doug, the host, one of the hosts, Doug and Ed were hosting, said, hey, let's go take a photo together. And we walk outside the little area that we were doing the seminar in, and right out in front of this spot is sitting Laura and Chad's Airstream, this one right here. And Doug goes, hey, let's go take a photo in front of that Airstream. So the whole group walks over. Remember, we just finished talking about front end separation. Walks over to my camper, and of course, you know, they immediately start looking at the front of my camper because we just talked about front end separation, and I went over some of the ways that you can kind of detect whether or not you have front end separation. And well, that's when we figured out that we probably had front end separation. Was that moment when the whole group was around our camper. I wish I'd made some videos or just called a clip or taken a photo of the group looking at my Airstream. Now we do have a photo, and I'll throw that up, of the whole group in front of our camper, which was cool. That was fun. But it was a little bit embarrassing as the guy who just finished talking about the front end separation issue with the group to have his camper have it. And the funny thing is, or the reality to me, if I had realized that it had an issue, or at least showed the initial signs of it, I would have been like, hey, if you guys want to see an example of it, go out and look at my camper. But I had honestly didn't even know. So let's just kind of see where we are. Let me show you some kind of stuff that's going on here, and then we'll just see kind of how the video evolves. I just stepped inside our flying cloud. Now, one of the things I did was a little bit of preliminary work on our Airstream, and the reason for that is I wanted to do the repair the correct way. And the reason I say that is, when you go to most of your Airstream stores, and maybe even some of your guys that are just on a shop that work on Airstreams, they're not going to necessarily put butt rivets back in. They're going to use a different style rivet. It's called an Olympic rivet, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second. But to help the guys out, and also because I kind of like doing stuff myself, like I like getting my hands dirty and working with things, I went ahead and took apart part of our Airstream. I'm going to show you kind of what I'm talking about with that. So if, let me think how to explain this. I should go grab the rivets. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go grab the rivets and we'll talk about it with those in hand. All right, hold on a second. Okay, so I went and found some different rivets to talk about, and they're in my pocket now. Let me pull those out. All right, so there's a few different types of rivets, and there are going to be some. Oh, my camper is not level. Just dropped one into the floor, but that's okay. Okay, so there's a few different types of rivets that you can use in an Airstream or in daily projects. Now, the one that you're probably used to seeing if you own an Airstream is going to be this guy, which is your kind of traditional pop rivet. And I'm going to flip the camera around and try to show this up close. Now, forgive our camper, it's a mess right now, and it's not Laura's fault, it is my fault, because I've got a bunch of projects going on. So this is a regular pop rivet, and it's what we use on the inside of an Airstream. So if I come over here, you'll see this little rivet here, and this is what it looks like before it's installed. And we actually have a spot right there that needs a rivet to be installed, and it would go in like that, and there's a tool that goes around this stem and then pulls this little tip here into it, and then bends that outer shield or that outer piece right there to create the rivet. Now on the outside of an Airstream, we use something called a butt rivet, which is this guy. And let me turn it over so you can kind of see what it looks like from the side. So you're going to have a smooth side like this. That would be what you see on the outside. Now this is painted white. It was the only one I could find quickly in the parts department. But it's a white exterior for some reason. It's probably the one they use on the roof because it's already got that white coating on it. And then what we would use is a tool on the outside that basically just holds this against the metal. And the tool on the inside is kind of like an impact wrench, but it's going to sit there and kind of knock against it until it pushes and bends this outer piece in to create the mechanical fastener, okay? Now, the kind of traditional way to fix something that's been bent, you have a little bit of an accident and we need to replace the panel on the outside. Now, generally, insurance companies don't want to pay for us to come in and take apart, say, this whole upper cabinet section to replace a corner. Sometimes, you know, cameras are backwards, so anyway, that way. So replace that corner piece. They don't want to pay to have Johnny pull this whole cabinet down and take the inside out so that we can get to the backside of that outer metal. So they did come up with a way to fix that, and it's called, I believe, an Olympic rivet. And it's different. Let me show you kind of what it looks like. So this would be what we would potentially use to replace a rivet on the outside. So like those ones that are missing on my front, we could pop this in and not have to take anything apart. So just put it in, and then there's a special tool that when they pull this in, it's going to, instead of this stem completely popping off, it's going to leave a little bit of this outer metal. And then they have something called a dressing tool that will come in and grind all of this down and make it look somewhat flush, almost like an original buck rivet, but it's not. And if you notice, right here on the inside, there is a little, a little tiny seal. See the little black seal right there. That is what's going to make this potentially waterproof or water resistant. Now here is a larger one, so you can see more better. Man, I'm from the South. If you haven't figured that out yet, but it's going to, you know, it'll be a little bit easier to see. But it's a larger fastener, so quite large. And the same thing, we can dress that and make it look almost like it was original butt rivet, but it's not. It's not original because when we use this butt rivet here and we get it from the outside, it creates such a tight mechanical fastener that it becomes essentially waterproof. No water is going to get in around those edges, and they don't need to add any sealant or even use, you know, a little O-ring there to try to make it to be water sealed. This is our camper here. Right beside us is a really cool, it's got to be 80s model. It's an international. You can just, oh, hey, 2049. Thanks for dropping your camper off. I'm going to show you some things on that one, but let me just show you this one first. So right off the bat, you're going to be able to see these butt rivets here. You can see how flush they are to the metal. Even if I go to kind of a middle section here, you're gonna see like it's so much pressure, and when they do this install, then it actually bends the outer skin in a little bit. So every single one of these, it's so much pressure creating that mechanical fastener that is pulling that metal in. Now I'm gonna show you what it looks like to have the Olympic rivet installed on a camper. So this panel here has been replaced at some point, and I can easily tell that for two reasons. One, it's actually really nice and shiny, so this is a newer piece of metal, and then you've got the older metal here from the original. So at some point they needed to replace something here on both sides, but what we can see on this one is that Olympic rivet. So it's been dressed, so it looks like it's a an original butt rivet, but you can easily tell because generally these are going to stick out a little bit, and you can usually see the little black seal inside of there. So that would be a good indication that this panel has been replaced. One of the things I would recommend looking, if you're buying a pre-owned, whether it's from a dealer or from an individual, look at every rivet. Just go around the whole camper and look at all of your rivets, look at all your corners, look at all your pieces coming together, and see if you can tell whether or not it has an Olympic rivet in there or a butt rivet. And the reason you want to know that is that's a potential leak point, and you want to keep an eye on those, make sure they don't back out and get loose, but you want to make sure they stay tight. Now each of those Olympic rivets on that particular area, they were all tight, so they're all going to still provide somewhat of a seal. But the best seal, the best way to repair an Airstream is to use a butt rivet. So what I did on my camper, because we are going to have to replace some rivets, we're going to have to do some repairs on the inside and the outside, I want to use butt rivets. Back inside, now I got some projects going on right now, and so I kind of took this as an opportunity to go ahead and do a few things with our camper, so since we were already having to take apart a good bit of the inside. I'm currently in the process of doing a lithium upgrade. Our camper came originally with AGM batteries, and then the little bit of solar that's on top. It's like 180 watts or something like that. And I happened to be able to grab some used lithium battle borns here at the store that we had to replace out for customers. So I was able to get those. And then we also had a 3000 watt inverter, which is not the traditional inverter that everybody wants. Everybody wants the Victron Multiplus 2, and this is not that. So it kind of worked out that I was able to pick this up fairly inexpensive as well. So there are some things I have to do to be able to make this a lithium install, and I'm going to video as much of that as I can and talk as much about the experience as I can. And again, this is something that I'm doing for the most part myself, and I will admit I'm at an Airstream service center that has guys that have worked on Airstreams for a very long time, and I'm friends with them, and they are giving me advice and helping me, but I am trying to do the work for the most part myself too, because I want to give kind of a first-hand experience of what it's like to do something like this. So let me flip this around. I'm going to talk mostly about what we did on the inside to prep for the guys to do the install. Now it's a mess in here. I've got stuff's kind of sitting everywhere. This is part of our bed. We have twin beds, if you remember. And this is the other side. You can see the water heater here. And then this model in 2020 came with an auto transfer switch. That's that box there. Now that's aftermarket. We had to replace that. That was one of the few things I've had to do to this camper since I've had it, was replace the original auto transfer switch. Now this section here, you would normally have the nightstand here in the middle, and there would be a box going across that creates your storage in the front and then storage in the side, and it covers up where your wires would be on this side here. And I'll throw up some images and stuff as I'm talking, and some b-roll from what I've done to take this apart. Now I took out all of that stuff there. We moved all that out, and currently sitting up here in the front is going to be that piece there that actually creates that storage, that compartment in the front. And there's some extra metal up here that we're going to use in the front end to fix our front end separation. And then there's also various pieces of metal, things and components that I've had to pull out as part of the lithium install. Now the other thing that I did to prepare this for the guys is I went ahead and took out the piece of metal that covers this section here, right here in the middle, and then of course around the bottom. And I've already pulled out all the rivets, drilled out the rivets for this panel right here, as well as the one on this side, so they can peel these back to get into the back side there. Now I'll show you a little bit down here at the bottom. So you've got essentially the bottom piece here. This is where it connects to the actual Airstream piece. There's just kind of a flat piece of metal that goes across that's welded in to the frame, and then that's where they connect the front end. We're going to add some more bolts going down into this section, as well as a new piece of metal, L-shaped aluminum piece to go across, and then we're going to add the L brackets that go in this area. Now what we'll be able to do, since we did it, let me fix the camera. Since I came in and took out this piece of metal, we can now get in behind to add butt rivets in when we fix the front of the, this front compartment. So when I place those rivets that have come out, we're going to use proper butt rivets to replace that. Now, my point of talking about this with you guys, if you come to our store and it's insurance or it's warranty, it's Airstream warranty that's doing this repair, they're not going to pay the hours, the extra hours that it takes to pull this interior apart and and do the butt rivets. They're going to pay for the techs to do a Olympic rivet and that type of repair. Now, what you could do, I think, you have to talk to the guys in service, the service writers, is I think you could say, hey, I want this done, it's under warranty, but I want you to do it right. What's going to be the additional cost? And it may be $2,000 additional or $1,000 additional. I don't know what it's going to be, maybe $3,000, but it's going to be somewhere around, I think, that $2,000 mark of additional cost on top of what will be approved by either insurance or Airstream. And I think it's worth, if you've got the financial means, to go ahead and pay that extra on top of what would be covered either by insurance or by warranty to make the repair. So you're going to pay the additional part to have the guys come in and pull the interior apart, take everything, take it out so they can pull those inside panels off that are pop rivets, get to the back of the butt rivets, and then be able to put in a proper butt rivet and make it the proper repair, the correct repair, in my opinion. That's 100% my opinion. And again, not an engineer, not a mechanic or a tech, but I wanted our camper to be fixed correctly, because I know at some point we're going to sell this and maybe upgrade to a bigger camper or a smaller camper. Who knows? When it comes to Airstream, you can kind of go either way. And I want to be able to say to the previous owner, hey, this is what we did for the repair, and we used proper butt rivets. You can trust this repair because we did it right. Which also means I'm going to pay a little bit extra to make sure this is done right. And I did a little bit of work myself to pull some of this interior part out to give them room to get started. Now, let me switch over and talk a little bit about what we're doing in our camper. So we are doing the lithium upgrade, and right now I think I'm going to put the batteries right here. So I got those 4 battle borns there. These are not heated. They're the non-heated version, and I'm fine with that. We can get around that here in the south. I think we'll be just fine. And then over on this side, I'm going to modify the way that the compartment comes down so that this 3,000 watt Renogy Ringo inverter will fit in here, inverter charge controller. And then I have cleaned this section up quite a bit. I'll throw a photo up so you can see what it looked like when I started. But there are some things that we're going to have to install to make this work. So the first thing that I had to do was a modification on the power box. It has a converter in it that is right here. Let me grab this guy. So this is an older converter, right there. And this can charge lead acid batteries or AGM batteries. Cannot charge lithium batteries. Doesn't have the profile and capabilities to do that. So if you have a 2020 model, you're going to need to replace this. You're going to need to replace the solar charge controller, and I'll show you what that looks like. So your 2020 and older campers will have a little charge controller that looks like this guy right here. And it's tiny, because the Victron version of this that we're going to be replacing that with is this one. And this is, significantly bigger compared to the two. Let me flip this around. Come on down, camera. There we go. There's the new one that we can charge lithium batteries with, and this will charge lithium, AGM, or lead acid, and then that's the old solar charge controller. Now, the truth is, this was set up to be able to handle the 2 smaller panels that they put up at the time. I think they were both 90 watt panels. This is capable of handling quite a bit more solar through this one box, and that's part of why it's bigger. But it's just significantly a larger device over this little guy here. So this had to come out, and then we're going to put this into place to handle solar. So we had to replace the converter. and we had to replace the solar charge controller. And then of course we also have to replace the batteries themselves. Now if you were going to do just a lithium upgrading, you didn't want to add more batteries in, and you didn't want to add in a bigger solar charge, or not solar charge, inverter, because we're putting a 3,000 watt inverter in to be able to do whole house power. You wouldn't need to update. You wouldn't need to go through what we're going to do. All you would need to do is upgrade the converter, which would be fairly easy to do, a couple $100, but fairly easy to do. And then you would upgrade the solar charge controller, which would also be another couple $100, but also fairly easy to do as well. Everything's pretty much labeled, and you would do it pretty much in place. You just need to make sure you do your fuses and things like that. Now, by us doing a whole house install for an inverter, so a 3,000 watt inverter, I want to have the capability to run our AC, which already has soft start on it, for a couple hours. We're at 400 amp hours, so we're not going to be running this for 8 hours. Like probably 2 hours that we could run it, maybe 3 dry, when we're dry camping. And then I'll have room, if I want to add more batteries in this front compartment here. We could easily put a 5th battery right there and have 500 amp hours. I don't want to use up this whole compartment. I'm trying to keep some storage area in this front compartment here. Now, some of the things I'll have to do, this didn't have the 1,000 watt inverter from the factory, and kind of show you where that is. So that plug there is what is the feed from the breaker box up here. So you've got a 20 amp, 20 or 15, I think it's 15 amp. Then you got a 15 amp circuit coming back to there. And then there is this circuit here that I've got currently taped off electrical tape. This is what's feeding all of your inverted circuit plugs. So one of the things that I'll have to do is put a box in there, replace that with a electrical box, and then connect these 2 cables together, so I'll complete that circuit. And then the other thing we're going to need to do is come in this area. We're going to cut this 30 amp cable here that's coming off the transfer switch. We're going to put a fairly large junction box here, because I need to run 30 amp cable up to the inverter, so we'll have an input. The output of the transfer switch is going to go into the input of the inverter, and then the output of the inverter is going to feed the actual power box here. So we'll cut that. So that's one of the things we'll need to do, and it's going to be fairly easy with this twin bed to do it, because I can just use, I'm going to put a little piece of conduit going back here in this compartment, the back side of this compartment, and run those cables that way. And then we're going to need some fairly large cable, which is going to actually be 4 aught cable to connect all of these batteries together, and then connect them to the inverter themselves. Now this inverter here is an inverter charger, so it's going to handle charging the 400 amp hour bank, and it's also going to handle doing the inverter work. It also, sorry to say also a lot, has a auto transfer switch inside of it itself. So when it's receiving 120 volt 30 amp power into the front of this box, it's going to let that pass through and go into the camper, so we would have regular 30 amp service. And then it's also going to use some of that power to charge that 400 amp hour bank of Battleborn batteries right there. Whew, that's a lot to say. So that is kind of the projects I'm working on. Now stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click the like button, click the little bell icon, because I am going to be posting more videos about the lithium install and inverter install, and we're also going to film the guys do the whole front end separation install or fix or repair, whatever you want to call it. All right, I hope you guys are having a great day. You live riveted, and we'll talk soon. Thanks. Bye.